Today, I need your prayers. And I'm saying that with a smile on my face, but I'm being dead serious. I need your prayers. The devil is working my last nerve. I think we're over the target with everything we're doing. We've had an incredible week of shows. I have an awesome show planned for you today. I'm going back in on the Harrison Butker situation. People won't let it go. But there are things going on in my personal life. I don't want anybody to think this has anything to do with business, but there are things going on in my personal life that's like when I get good news, this thing going on with my move to a new neighborhood just jumps up and says, look over here, Whitlock. Quit that good news you just had. We're going to take a dump all over it because there's some crazy people harassing you. I'm going to leave it at that. The reason I need prayer is because I want to air some people out, and I don't need to do it, and I'm not going to do it for now. And it's been a total distraction. Before I sat down to do today's show, the devil came and tried to distract me from delivering the message that I'm going to deliver you today. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great show. Delano Squires is going to join me. We're going to go back in on Harrison Butker and what's going on with the Chiefs kicker. Stay tuned. An amazing episode of Fearless. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining me. Today's show, I promise you, is going to be awesome. But I also want to offer this tiny bit of advice. You've heard it before. I just want to reiterate it again. Don't ever make the mistake of mistaking kindness for weakness. Because that's what I think is going on with me. People have mistaken kindness for weakness. And I'm trying to navigate how I'm going to show, no, I'm not weak. And people are trying to take me to a place that I've tried to leave behind because I can be a bad person. And I'm trying to figure out a very Christian way to demonstrate a level of strength that will snap some people back into reality, and that's why I need your prayers. My kindness is being mistaken for weakness, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I do this? And so, please, pray to God that someone or something, or God speaks to me directly, helps me figure out how to solve this ongoing problem without me being disobedient to him and making a fool out of him. I need your prayers. I want to thank our great friends at Good Ranchers. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Use my promo code FEARLESS at goodranchers.com. And with your subscription, you can claim free American Wagyu burgers for a year, a $400 value, and you can support veterans this Memorial Day season. Thank you, Good Ranchers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. I need the Fearless Army to show up and show out for Good Ranchers. Also, and I know the algorithm's working against us, and that's why I'm trying to turn you into our human algorithm. Because the algorithms they built in Silicon Valley, as it relates to Apple, as it relates to YouTube, as it relates to Google, they're all rigged against the stuff that we talk about on this show daily, the stuff I'm about to talk about today. They don't want it out there. They don't want people like Harrison Butker out there. They don't want me celebrating Harrison. They don't want Jesus Christ centered the way that we do on this show and try to praise other people that do the same. So I need you to be the human algorithm that's sharing this show, sending your friends and other people that need to hear this, or you want to hear this, you want to have a conversation with them. I need you on Apple hitting that 5-star rating. I need you on YouTube hitting the likes, hitting the subscribe. They're working against us. I need you working with me. Do your part. Let me get to the fire starter. Let me get to my job. My job is to please and challenge you and to come up with content that you enjoy and supports our worldview. So some of this I got into yesterday. I just want to get into it a bit more deeply today because I am from Kansas City, 16 years. My brand is attached to the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is one of the rare times where I'm like, man, I wish I was back in Kansas City so I could be leading the charge, defending Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker. So let me just get into it. Cowards, feminists, and leftists, they love to talk about gun violence. They avoid uttering a disparaging word about the Crips, the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, the Vice Lords, or any of the other fatherless lunatics who turn neighborhoods into shooting galleries. A gun has never pulled a trigger. It's safe to demonize and publicly criticize guns. They're harmless. On the other hand, there's a ton of statistical evidence that shows boys and men raised in broken homes are 10 or 20 times more likely to get involved with violent criminal behavior. Cowards, feminists, and leftists, they fear gangs. That's why they talk about gun violence rather than gang violence. Gang members have a propensity to harm people. I bring this up because in a speech to Benedictine College graduates, NFL kicker Harrison Butker connected the dots on violent crime and broken American families. His speech triggered leftists. They want Butker canceled. They started a petition asking the Kansas City Chiefs to release him from the team. Here's an example of the kind of things Butker said during his 20-minute commencement speech to a bunch of young Catholics. Take a listen.
To the gentleman here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the US, and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men.
I gotta circle back to this because what this man just said is so powerful and so on point and on brand for what we talk about every day here. How men are being emasculated, run out of leadership positions, run out of their biblical roles. And it's why we have so much chaos in this country. And it's why we're doing roll call, and it's why we're doing this show, trying to motivate men to play their position, to play the role God wants them to play. So Butker's statement, among several other statements he made, triggered Shannon Watts, a gun violence prevention activist and the founders of Moms Demand Action. Watts took to X, aka Twitter, to rip Butker. Shared this with you guys yesterday, shared it again today. Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker's speech at Benedictine College railed against abortion, IVF, and surrogacy, and euthanasia, LGBTQ+, and liberated women. But it did not mention the gun violence that killed a fan at the Super Bowl parade. Gun extremism is part of the religion. So Watts is a suburban white woman. She's scared of gangs. Being a leftist and a Buddhist, she's likely scared of black men and of being accused of racism. Fear controls her. She values her personal safety and career advancement well above speaking the truth. Many American men have joined women like Watts in valuing safety and career advancement well above truth. Men have been emasculated, and we think like women. That explains all the talk about gun violence. Guns are a soft target. Again, they don't pull triggers. Criticizing guns requires zero courage. It allows you to sound tough while actually being soft. So I responded to Shannon Watts' tweet and spelled out her lack of courage and her cosplay. She responded back to me with distortions and lies. The shooters were teen boys. Much easier to call them gang members than children who were given easy access to guns by lawmakers who are mostly white men. She's a woman. She's scared. She's afraid of gangs, and she's afraid of Black Lives Matter and woke cancel culture. Lawmakers did not give the shooters access to guns. Other criminals did that. Shannon Watts knows this. This has all been written about. A 23-year-old, a 20-year-old, and an 18-year-old, and a 15-year-old were charged with firing weapons at the Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Lindell Mays, age 24, Terry Young, age 20, and Dominic Miller, age 18, were charged with second-degree murder. The unnamed 15-year-old was charged with unlawful use of a weapon and armed criminal action. Those are the facts. Those are the people responsible. Calling out those men is high risk. That's why Shannon Watts prefers to attack the people, white lawmakers, and the objects, guns, because she doesn't fear them. She fears Lindell Mays, Terry Young, Dominic Miller, so she pretends not to know their names. She fears their associates. She fears the gang culture that disciples Mays, Young, and Miller. And she benefits from the feminist-driven baby mama culture that produces the violence that permeates urban America. Watts' behavior is cowardly. The cowardice of feminists and leftists prevents us from properly addressing the collateral damage that accompanies cultures plagued by broken families. People like Watts stop the discussion of and the pursuit of truth. She forces us to live in the same fantasy world she dwells in. In her world, guns are more harmful than broken families. In her world, Harrison Butker is a bad guy and Lindell Mays is an innocent toddler forced to kill by white racist lawmakers. Irrational fear infringes on freedom. We're surrendering our freedom because people who value safety over freedom have too much power. We're building a society that caters to unmarried feminists. Harrison Butker is dead right here. Man and woman are meant for the sacred covenant of biblical marriage. A society that de-emphasizes marriage between man and woman will devolve into violent, unsustainable chaos. Butker espoused common sense. The fact that his statements have been deemed controversial is proof of the lethal delusion we're now all forced to live in. Everything, that's my fire starter, I'm gonna expound. Everything we're experiencing, everything we talk about and have been talking about on this show connects to what Harrison Butker was talking about and Shannon Watts' reaction. Harrison spoke plain common sense. There's nothing he said at Benedictine that would have been considered controversial 30, 40, 50 years ago. No one would bat an eye. It would be no different than if he had walked on stage and said, "Today is Thursday." Everybody would have nodded their head and said, "Yeah." But because we've empowered people who value safety more than freedom, and because now, and I call me a sexist pig, I don't care. It's just the truth. Men and women are different. And that's why God created marriage and we're supposed to come as one. And I know that I've been mistaken in not getting married. I cop to that. I'm part of the problem. But at least I'm not delusional enough to try to justify a worldview and a belief system that's this disobedient to God and this disobedient to just facts and reality. I'm copying to my mistake. And I don't care if Shannon Watts is married. She's a feminist and she wants a leadership position that her mentality can't support. She's too soft. She's too scared. A bunch of idiot gangbangers shot up a Chiefs Super Bowl parade, and she wants to blame the gun. The gun can't pull the trigger. You know who pulls the trigger? This is statistically, I'm not saying every time, but what the stats say. Men from broken families. Men who lean into their emotions and are easily triggered, emotionally triggered, because they haven't been discipled by their father, either one, their heavenly father or their earthly father. They haven't been discipled by him. So they give into their emotions, and they got the physicality of a man, but the emotions of their mother or grandmama that raised them. And so anytime they allegedly get disrespected, and the shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs parade was about someone mean mugging, someone staring at them improperly. That's what caused these toddlers that white racists gave guns to, that's what caused them to start shooting, and a woman got killed. And now women like Shannon Watts want to step up and say, hey, I know the solution. This is what we should do. We got to take everybody's guns away. Gun violence. No, we got baby mama drama violence. That's what it is, factually. And I'm so impressed and pleased that Harrison Butker has the courage to speak out against it and connect it to the disobedience to God that's at the root of it. People will be upset with her, and she's playing the game. That's why she said, white lawmakers gave them the guns. They're just toddlers. They're just little children. And white lawmakers gave them the gun. This is why I talk about racial idolatry. This is what I talk about, how they package everything black to disguise and to avoid the truth and to get you to accept a lie. Oh my God, white racist lawmakers are giving black kids guns and that's why they shoot each other. Let's talk about that. No, let's talk about the fact that the family structure has been destroyed. Young men and young women are not being properly discipled by two parents in their home. And there's a reason why a certain demographic who seems to not believe in marriage has such a violence problem. And it's not because white lawmakers are giving them guns. White kids all over America got guns. Are they shooting up their neighborhoods? Are they shooting up the people in their community the way we are? And yes, I know you go, what about Dylan Roof? And we can talk about isolated cases, but the statistics are overwhelming. Broken families lead to chaotic violence, and they produce, and I'm just sorry. Look, my parents divorced. For a great portion of my life, I grew up in my mother's home. My father was very involved. I don't want to discredit it. And then my senior year of high school, I told you I'll live with my father. My father was always involved. But I grew up in a broken home. So I'm talking about myself. The stats are overwhelming. Everybody knows it. We deal with young people that had no father in their life. And we know how easily triggered they are and how emotional they are. We know that their test scores, their incarceration rate, every negative consequence is visited upon them because their fathers and mothers are not in the same home. Has nothing to do with skin color. Harrison Butker's argument is biblical and is non-racist. Shannon Watts' argument is unbiblical and it's racist. And so look, don't blame yourself. Don't blame your broken down family. It's the white racist lawmakers. They gave you guns and you're just a little kid. And this is why, the media is just overrun with this feminine worldview, this feminist worldview, because women don't think like men. They're not going to draw a line in the sand. They're not going to say uncomfortable truths. She wants to say something and blame something that's harmless. Because she's not a risk taker. What Shannon Watts, she's not going to be one of the Wright brothers and invent flying and take that risk. And this is why I keep talking about men. We got to quit apologizing for being men. Because all these things that allow Shannon Watts to pretend like she's some sort of leader and she knows the solution and she's so courageous, she's standing up against guns and gun violence and white lawmakers, everybody that she doesn't fear. She'll walk by a gun laying on the floor and think nothing of it. Let Lindell Mays and Dominic Miller walk by. Pants hanging off their rear end, gun tucked in the front. She's scared then, and she's not going to say a word about it. And the media's going to run and put cameras and microphones in front of her face. Look how tough she is. She's a leader. She's speaking out against gun violence. And no one bats an eye when she says anything, because no one cares, and she knows no one cares, and she knows she's playing flag football. The real action is in tackle football, where people take risks. And so it takes a man to say, you know what? These unfathered young boys, these Bloods and Crips, gangster disciples, Lindell Mays and his associates, we got to do something about this. We have to center and promote fatherhood and marriage if we want to fix these problems. And because as an American, and I know some of you have said, no, just remove the guns. And then they won't be able to shoot anybody. And then we'll be surrendering all of the rest, whatever few freedoms they leave us with, we'll be surrendering those too. Virtually everything, again, we give up the gun, and virtually everything I'm saying today would land me in jail. We give up the guns, and the next time COVID leaks out of some lab that Dr. Fauci's paying for, we'll all be forced to take the jab at gunpoint by the government. See, the government's not going to give up its guns. And idiots like, I don't want to call it, foolish people, naive people like Shannon Watts think, oh, the government's our friend. We'll leave the government with all the guns. We can trust the government. This woman can't even read a history book, or she can't comprehend one. The government makes the Crips and the Bloods look like Boy Scouts. We can't have these types of conversations if men want to act like women and women have to be centered in every conversation. Because a woman's going to bring her emotions and her fear to the table, and then she's going to emasculate all the men around them, and they're going to start thinking, yeah, let's do whatever's safe. All this freedom, all this prosperity, all of these nice things that you enjoy, the highways, all of it. None of it comes from fear. It comes from a fearlessness of men, risk-taking of men, men willing to die for what they believe in. We did that. And we must be willing to defend that. And we must be willing to make similar sacrifices if we want to be free. See, this woman doesn't care. She's a Buddhist. She doesn't care about religious freedom. You think someone's going to take her yoga mat from her? You think they'll ever outlaw yoga mats? This woman's a yoga instructor and a Buddhist. She don't care about religious freedom. If they pass every law in the book outlawing every scripture in the Bible, she won't bat an eye. As long as she's got her yoga mat. Abortion has been the greatest sin in our history as a country, and it happens every single day. And unfortunately, overturning Roe v. Wade was only the first step in a long list of steps towards eventually cleansing our country of that horrific stain on its conscience. The ministry of preborn empowers young expectant mothers in crisis to choose life. Preborn has rescued hundreds of thousands of babies' lives through ultrasound. When a woman considering abortion visits a preborn center, she gets to hear her baby's heartbeat and meet that precious child on ultrasound, and it's a divine encounter. The majority of time, she will choose life for her baby. I'm proud to be affiliated with an organization that's not only working to save lives, but is succeeding. Preborn has a passion to save unborn babies from abortion and see women come to Christ. Over the past 15 years, preborn centers have counseled over 450,000 women considering abortion, and over 200,000 babies have been saved. Those are amazing numbers, but let's do more. Will you help rescue babies' lives? To donate, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. Man, it's always awesome to talk about preborn. The idolatry of women. We've got women on a pedestal that we should not have them on. Trust me, they're valuable. Trust me, we need them. But we need them playing their proper role and position. This woman's not. And she's talked a bunch of men into running around and thinking like her and acting like her. And that's why we have so much chaos and violence. And that's why I'm sitting here on this show trying to help you understand, because the rest of the media will not tell you any of this. You'll be sitting around watching mainstream media or on Twitter or X, listening to a group of scared idiots talk you out of, you got to get rid of the guns. Once you get rid of the guns, you'll be safe. And safety is the most important thing. Your soul, your salvation, your Christian beliefs, give them all up for safety. This is insanity. Led by women. Led by our idolatry. That's why I talk about idolatry all the time. And going to continue. And that's why we're doing roll call. Because men have to understand, we have to come together, have these rough conversations, and get together. So because again, they're outlawing it everywhere. They just took down the Boy Scouts. Little boys can't get together and learn things together anymore. That's dangerous. We got to be inclusive, and everybody's got to be in the room and talking about. No, we're gonna get together as men, talk about the mentality that we need to have if we're going to course correct and if we're going to protect our rights to practice our beliefs. They're rallying up. Trust me on this. If the LGBTQ wants to have a conference of just LGBTQ people, and someone says, well, you need to be inclusive. Invite Jason Whitlock and his friends to the. Why they need to be here? They don't get down like us. And That's what I'm saying to you, men. We don't get down like them. So let those of us that have shared values and beliefs and just want to be men and understand that it's our role to be leaders, if we're going to fix this, let's all come together in Nashville, encourage each other, listen to some good music, eat some good barbecue, and start planning our mindset and reconfiguring our mindset so we know how to deal with the Shannon Wattses of the world, and so that we know when we hear things that just don't add up. If your minister isn't talking about the emasculation of men and male leadership, if he's too scared of running off the women in his congregation, and he's not telling the congregation, you better let that man lead, because that's what God said should happen. And you women, you better be finding you a man to marry to and be obedient to. He's not telling you what you need to hear. You need to go find another church. And you need to take the blinders off and pick a church not based on skin color, but based on whether the people in that congregation are willing to be courageous enough to follow the word. So I'm going to bring Delano in on this conversation because Delano hammers this topic as well as anybody and has been talking about the importance of family. And I want to hear his take on just this reaction to what Harrison, it's ongoing. There's what Lisa Guerrero. Hold on. I want to show this tweet. Isn't this from like KansasCity.com or KansasCity.com is a newspaper, but this tweet from Kansas City, some Twitter feed from Kansas City that like took a shot at again, I'm from Kansas City. 16 years. It's my second home. Indianapolis is my hometown. Kansas City is my adopted hometown. And Nashville is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. But this is Kansas City taking a shot at this guy for talking common sense. Just a reminder that Harrison Butker lives in the city of Lee Summit. Kansas City distancing itself from from a Super Bowl kicker who went to a Catholic college as a Catholic and called out Catholics and tried to inspire them to live out a biblical worldview. And then they got enough blowback, thankfully, over X, because now that Elon runs X, you can't actually push back against this idiocy. And so then we apologize for our previous tweet. It was shared in error. So good job to those of you on X that pushed back against this idiot Twitter feed. Last thing I want to show you before Delano gets, before I bring Delano on, I want to show you this. Not everybody at Benedictine was happy. I want to share with you all a student who reacted. I think this is a female student. She reacted to, it's SOT number 4. She reacted to Harrison Butker's commencement speech and was not too pleased. Let's play the clip.
All right. Well, since I have about 200 of y'all congratulating me and asking me what the I was thinking during this speech, I thought I'd respond. Yeah, it was horrible. Some of us did boo. Me and my roommate definitely did. There was a standing ovation from everyone in the room, except from me, my roommate, and about 10 to 15 other women. You also have to keep in mind this was at a Catholic and conservative college. So a lot of the men were like, yeah, they were excited, but it was horrible. Most of the women were looking back and forth at each other like, what the f*** is going on? Like, did he just come here to speak about politics and his views on women? That's all you got for a graduation commencement speech? Are you kidding? But yeah, it was horrible. And a lot of y'all are also asking where I will be going after college. I graduated with a bachelor's in graphic design, and I will be working for a nationwide magazine company, doing layout and photography. So yeah, I'm excited for what my career brings me, and no, I'm not a homemaker. Also, I'm 21, question mark. Getting married and having kids is not my ideal situation right now. So, yeah, it was definitely horrible, and it definitely made graduation feel a little less special, knowing I had to sit through that and get told I'm nothing but a homemaker. So, but thank you all for congratulating me. It means a lot. I cried a little bit reading all y'all's comments, but yeah. Love y'all.
Man never said you're nothing but a homemaker. The man said that hopefully at some point you'll realize that being a mother is your highest calling and the highest version of yourself. And you don't see it that way. I get it. But you made a choice to go to Benedictine College. It's a Catholic school. The man preached Catholic values. That's what Catholics believe. This type of lunacy is like, Benedictine College, go someplace else. Go to a secular university. Go to one of these universities that preaches that, women need to be locked up in a cubicle and focused on their career and making as much money as possible. Go to one of those universities. You chose Benedictine. It's no different than, and I've been saying this since college. When we were at Ball State University, I would, some of my teammates, some of my classmates, I would say, man, Ball State ain't black enough. I'm like, oh, you didn't know that till you got here? You could have went to a HBCU if you wanted a black environment. You chose to come here. No one put a gun to your head and said, come to Ball State so you can have the blackest experience. This is a choice. You have to live with the consequences of your choice. Every time I put on a pair of size 42 or 40 jeans, and I was like, man, I wish I'd like to be in size 34. Well, I made the choice to be fat, so I got to deal with the consequences. Put them size 40 jeans on and shut up, Jason, unless you want to do something about it. You make a choice to go to Benedictine College and then get upset when someone gives you a Catholic commencement speech. That's idiocy. You make a choice to go to a predominantly white university and then say, hey man, I thought Snoop Dogg and everybody else from the culture would be here. That's your choice. Make a different choice. Howard would love to have you. Burgers are the most popular food in America. You've probably eaten one in the past week, and you're definitely craving one since I started talking about it. That's why you should make this summer one to remember by subscribing to Good Ranchers and getting free Wagyu burgers for a year. If you haven't had their American Wagyu burgers, then you haven't had one of the best burgers ever. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. Here's 3 steps to get your year of free burgers. Simply go to goodranchers.com and subscribe to any of their custom curated boxes filled with a 100% American beef, chicken, pork, or wild-caught seafood. Use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout to claim your free American Wagyu burgers for a year, plus a free bacon butter gift that is perfect bacon topping for any burger. All in all, that's a $400 value with my promo code FEARLESS. Get free shipping on all your orders and have the summer to remember. If you needed any other reason to support Good Ranchers, they're not only amazing partners of my show, but they support the paralyzed veterans of America too. Every order saves American farms and supports American veterans. Change the way you buy meat today at goodranchers.com with my promo code FEARLESS to claim your free burgers for a year. Get 100% American meat delivered and support veterans this Memorial Day season. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Delano Squires, next. Do you know how you're going to spend the first day of Pride Month? I know how I'm going to spend it. Honoring God, my Lord and Savior, fellowshipping with other men who are concerned about the direction of this country. I'm going to spend it right here in Nashville, Tennessee, leading Roll Call 2.0 alongside country music star John Rich. John and I have partnered on this annual event to inspire men to live up to their biblical responsibility of leadership. John's going to sing, I'm going to speak, so is Blaze founder Glenn Beck. We've invited basketball coaches, football players, singers, successful entrepreneurs, North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, Pastor E.W. Jackson, author Vince Everett Ellison, and contributors of the Fearless Army to speak and fellowship with us. You can join us in Nashville June 1, or you can celebrate Pride Month. It's your choice. To join us, visit fearlessarmyrollcall.com and reserve your spot. Put the camera back on me. I want to show everybody because, you know, I'm sure as you watch the show, you've been talking about like, damn, Whitlock looks good. I know I'm a distract. It's because I don't worry.
Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now.
For those of you that are not mad at me for bragging on how good I look, and you know I'm self-deprecating, so.
I'm him! I'm him!
All right, welcome back. Time to bring in Delano Squires. This is a topic, as I told you right before I went to break, that Delano been all over about the family and the importance of family, the collateral damage from the breakup of the family. Delano, what do you think about the reaction Harrison Butker's commencement speech is causing across the way? People want him kicked out of the NFL. Women are upset. He said all women are made for the kid. Anyway, your reaction to it?
I think Harrison Butker achieved a very rare 2-for-1. He offended the feminists and smoked out the simps, because all I've been seeing is, you know, women, even some who may be on the center right, reading things into his words that he didn't say. He didn't say women should only be at home with their children. He uplifted his wife, and he said her most important vocations are as a mother and a wife and as a homemaker. And apparently that's not allowed today. Now, if he told the women that they should fight for their right to abort their children so that they don't miss out on an entry-level job at Amazon, or if he told them that OnlyFans is empowering, or if he told them that sex work is just as legitimate as being a paralegal, or if he told them that being in a polyamorous relationship is sort of the next wave, then nobody would say anything to him. But the fact that he stood on his Catholic, traditional, conservative principles got everybody in an uproar. And as I said, there are a significant number of American men who need a serious intervention, because when a guy says that the role of mom and wife is important, and the reaction from from journalists and other media professionals and pundits is that he's a Neanderthal, he hates women, I think that should tell us something. So I'm not surprised it got the reaction that it did, but I hope he stands his ground, and particularly stands up to his employer, the out of the closet gay NFL.
I correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, because maybe I'm not wrong because it's just my opinion. But I think the highest form of humanity is mother and father. And there's no greater responsibility, no more rewarding profession, and no more important profession than being a mother or a father. And so even if he did say that, like, hey, you know, being a mother is the most important thing, it's more important than your career, I would applaud that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the problem is that feminists have been lying for a long time. And obviously everybody knows that. But they've been lying on about their most basic premise, which is feminism is about giving women choices. But all of us know that that's a lie. Because if a woman goes to, you know, a high school classroom and she asks the girls there, what do you want to be when you grow up? And half the room says, I want to be a lawyer and a doctor, they would be applauded. She said, yeah, go girl, you can do it. Don't let anyone stop you. But if the other half says, I want to be a wife and a mother, with no other caveats, they just say it just like that, that woman in the front of the room is either going to say or at least think, is that it? Is that all you want to do with your life? And I think we as a culture have been poorly discipled and catechized. And the second wave feminists, starting with Betty Friedan, who wrote the book Feminine Mystique, have had this culture in a figure four leg lock for the better part of 60 years. So I agree with you, Jason. I've done a lot of things in terms of being able to earn a living, but my highest calling, my most important vocation is as a husband and a father, because part of what God told Adam and Eve in the garden is to be fruitful and multiply. That's the first mandate, right? That's the primary job of one generation, is to propagate the next generation. And to the extent that our culture tells women that the height of womanhood is to think, speak, and act like a man, including, dismissing and devaluing women's monopoly on being able to bear and bring forth life, we've all done ourselves a disservice. And as I said, if that root of feminism is to be pulled out of the culture, and I pray that it is going to be harder to get it out of some men than it is many American women.
Delano, I didn't prepare you for this, but you can handle it. I want to, and I'm going to circle back to Harrison, but it made me, while you were talking, I started thinking about this other little spat I got going on over X, and it's about Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has now expressed regrets for the roast and the way it impacted his children. What he's leaving out is like the full explanation or confession that, like, oh man, I let these guys talk about the mother of my children in a way that harmed my children. And so what I've been tweeting about is like, and I wish I had thought of it in real time. I was in error. I was just so pleased. Hey, they're cracking jokes and they're not politically correct. But I think we as men don't value motherhood enough that Tom Brady should have been thinking in his right mind, like, hey man, I know this woman cheated on me. I know she's made a fool out of me in this marriage, but she is the mother of my children, and I cannot be captured on television laughing as men and women call the mother of my children a whore. And so my belief is that it's not about, once you're divorced, it's not about, hey, that's my ex-wife. Your mentality has to be, that's the mother of my children. And I know we had our disagreements, but because she's the mother of my children, I have to honor and respect her until the end of time. And if Tom Brady were in that mindset, and because I'm getting a lot of blowback from men, she's a whore, she cheated on him, why do you have any sympathy for her? And I'm like, I get it, but that's the mother of his kids. And that's all he needs to be thinking about. He's got to protect her and honor her. And I know she clearly or something did him wrong, but it doesn't trump the fact she's the mother of his kids.
Yeah, and you see this a lot with divorced couples where the wise ones will say, I'm not going to speak ill of the other person. And typically it's a woman saying, I won't speak ill of my child's father in front of them because they understand how it will affect the kids. And I'll tell you one particular, this is also an athlete who I think has found this balance and execute this well, is Shaq, is Shaquille O'Neal. Like Shaq will to my knowledge, does not speak poorly of his ex-wife, Shani. And even the other day, Jason, because I believe she has a book out, and she's married to some pastor who got himself in some other controversy, and she came out and said, I never loved Shaq. And his response on Instagram, I believe, was not to defend. He just said, you know what? If I was you, I wouldn't have loved me either. And I wish you the best, and so on and so on and so forth. So he took the high road. I'm not saying I would have responded that way, right? But there's some space in between saying what Shaq said and going the other route, which is to attack her publicly. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. And really, at the end of the day, Tom Brady probably, if he didn't want those jokes to be told, he should not have allowed himself to be roasted, because he has to know that there's nothing off limits, and particularly his recent divorce. But yeah, I agree. I do think it is good and proper for men, and we're speaking to men now, to honor their wives, the mothers of their children, or even their ex-wives whenever possible, specifically for the sake of the children. Because if not, you put your kids in a difficult position where now they're having to choose between mom and dad.
Well, it was a roast, but he did have clear lines in the sand. And this is where I'm saying, like, we're not in the right mentality as men. When someone popped off about Bob Kraft, a billionaire who got caught at a massage parlor, he's riding dirty. But oh no, let me jump and protect Bob Kraft, a grown billionaire man who isn't the mother of his kids. He knew to stop the Bob Kraft jokes, but not in the proper mindset of, hey, that's the mother of my kids, y'all trashing her. The kids are gonna make fun of my kids because we're trashing her. I'm on here TV laughing at it. This is, again, like, we don't respect motherhood. Again, because if your mindset is, man, motherhood, there's no higher calling, look at the importance. If he's in that mindset, it ain't Bob Kraft he's running out to protect, it's the mother of his kids.
Yeah, but I think what probably happens, and obviously I'm assuming here, right, that yes, it's the mother of his kids, but from his perspective, this is also the woman, as you said, who did me dirty. And I know that I, as Tom Brady, can't say these things, but at a roast, if other people say these things, I'm just gonna sit back and act like, hey man, that's a little bit too far. But I do think, again, if speaking as Tom Brady, yeah, she deserves to get some of that, to get ripped publicly for how it is that she hurt me. And I understand how a guy would feel that, but again, I think your higher responsibility to your children, regardless of what age they are, actually, should supersede those feelings that you have for your ex-wife.
Well, and I love that you brought Shaq into it, because now I think you maybe have provoked me, and I may end up writing about this, because I think the reason why Shaq won't say anything about Shani is because that's the mother of his kids. He's actually in the right mindset and has taken several opportunities not to take a shot at her. And I'm glad I hadn't made that connection. I'm glad you did, because it's an indication like Shaq's got the right mindset and Brady doesn't. I'm just telling you, I think it's as selfish a thing as I've ever seen from Tom Brady, who has a great reputation for being a great team player and all this, and allegedly has all the right values. This is as selfish as an act, and I'm getting killed over X. Men are just coming to me, you simp, she's a whore, she did this, she did that. And I'm just telling you, the right mindset is for Brady. I get all the outside noise, and he has not said, I feel bad for how it impacted my kids. He needs to come out and say, nah, I feel bad for participating in something that trashed the mother of my kids. That's what he needs to say. That's the full apology.
Yeah, I mean, it just time will tell whether he would do that. I mean, my guess is that he would just let it blow over, and then they move forward, right? And I hope that knowing that he was going to be roasted and knowing that this was going to come up, that he prepped her for that. But yeah, I think athletes actually have and can play a large role in advancing some of these conversations that we've been having for a long time on marriage and family. Jason Kelsey did it. He talked and got quite emotional talking about his role as a husband and father. And in fact, Harrison Butker, a few minutes after the clip that people saw online, he talked about his vocation as husband and father. So I feel like athletes can do a lot to advance that. But again, most of these guys who are built like Adonises, like Greek gods, they are more whipped than garlic mashed potatoes. And they feel comfortable speaking up if it's abortion, like Kyler Murray. If a few of them maybe on gay rights, they certainly feel comfortable on anything about race. They'll pump their fists in the air for police, to protest police brutality, and they're entitled to their views. But when it comes to saying something that actually requires bravery, which in this culture means things like there are only two sexes and switching is not allowed, things like men do not belong in women's sports, or things like I think that the role of wife and mother is just as, if not more important than any role that some woman can have in corporate America. That takes a lot more courage. And in fact, Jason, I was talking to my sister and my brother-in-law this morning. Whenever I see clips like Harrison Butker go viral, it makes me think of one particular moment in the culture, and I know you'll remember this. Probably a decade ago when MTV had Making the Band with P. Diddy, and he had these aspiring rappers. And one of the things he had them do, because Dave Chappelle sort of parodied this, he had them do all sorts of crazy stuff. He had them kids walk from Manhattan, I think they might have been in Times Square, across the Brooklyn Bridge to go get him a piece of cheesecake from Junior's, right? A very well-known and famous restaurant in New York. And it made me think, and I thought to myself, I wonder if either the women on that show in the group are married today. And I wonder how they would react if their husband asked for a sandwich or for a home-cooked meal. And I wonder if either of them would say, well, you got hands just like I do. You work just like I do. Why can't you make your own sandwich? Because if they did, and I was him, I would say, oh, when Diddy told you to go walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to get a piece of cheesecake, you did it. Because, and you know why you did it? Because you respect your boss, but you don't respect me. And that's because it's not that women have a problem submitting to men. They have a problem submitting to their husband. And that's been the problem since the fall. Because when you're an executive assistant and the boss asks you for some coffee and a sandwich, and he said, make sure they don't burn the bread, you said, yes, sir, and you bring it to him. But when your husband asks for something, then it's always a fight in the household. So Harrison Butker has his finger on the pulse, and I think anything that accords esteem and honor to the roles that women play in their homes as wives and mothers, in addition to whatever else they have going on, is something that I can agree with.
With the elections coming up, I'm expecting things to get even crazier than they already are, especially when it comes to freedom of speech and how hypocritical the left is when it comes to it. To them, it's okay to chant from the river to the sea, but you calling our border crisis and invasion a crime? That's a bridge too far. We already know that big tech is doing everything in their power to suppress the truth. They even collude with our government to do so. Do I need to remind you about Hunter Biden's laptop? You better believe that getting the truth out to you will be even harder than it is now. You see, here at the Blaze Media, we saw this coming, and it's exactly why we exist. Blaze TV and Blaze News is a place where I can speak freely with no repercussions, a place where viewers can be a part of the solution and ensure that they can't cut us off from each other. Consider supporting Blaze Media, where our mission is to set fire to the lies the left wants you to believe. Not only will you get this show, but you'll have access to everything else we do here, from our Blaze original series to Steve Baker's incredible investigative work revealing the shocking lies about January 6th, and so much more. Go to blazetv.com and subscribe today. And when you do, be sure to use the promo code FEARLESS to get $20 off your subscription. That's blazetv.com and use the promo code FEARLESS to get $20 off. Do it today. You want that extra fearless content, like that amazing conversation we had yesterday with Anthony, Virgil, Kevin Donahue, and Spencer Smith? Got to be a Blaze TV subscriber. Do it today. So, Delano, this is something as a married man you can answer that I can't. But it's like when I'm looking at the corrosion of American culture, and I'm connecting all the Brady and Butker and all of this to this, that, again, you're married, and you love your wife. But once you have kids and she becomes the mother of your children, I would think that elevates your love and appreciation for her. And it takes things even to a higher level, or I think it should, in my opinion. I'm unmarried, that's why I'm asking you. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. As you said, I love my wife. We will celebrate 12 years of marriage at the end of July. But once we had our first child, our daughter, it took things up a notch in terms of the seriousness of our relationship, sort of the creation of a new family. Like, we were family when we got married, but once we have kids, we added to that family. And just how I see my role and responsibilities to them. And some people may know this, my wife, who I met my wife while she was finishing her PhD. I was there in the audience recording when she defended her dissertation from Hampton University. We worked in the same building when we both worked for DC government, and she was a social worker. But eventually, after our third child, we decided for her to come home. And it was a struggle for me more so than her, because, again, like a good little feminist as I was, which I didn't know, I looked at her more as a wage earner. And I didn't value her roles as wife and mother. And even me, brought up in church, in a conservative Christian background, thought just like the guys who were criticizing Harrison Butker. But I thank God for, his mercy and his providence. And eventually I started to come around to begin to value those things more. And yes, when you have children, because I think a child is the ultimate gift that a woman can give to a man. But when you live in a culture that treats sex casually, then children are not, and babies are not seen as the beautiful fruit of reproduction. Babies are seen as a burden and a consequence to sex that needs to be dismissed so that man and woman could go on living their life and living in their quote unquote purpose. But yeah, it definitely ratchets things up a notch, and having children raises the stakes for all of the sort of quote unquote culture war issues that we fight about. Because it's one thing to think about your kids being indoctrinated in school in the abstract. It's another thing when, like I did, I had to email the principal and say, I see you guys are putting up BLM stuff. What does this mean? What is the school's position on Black Lives Matter? And when I did it 2 times and he didn't answer either time, I told my wife, well, she can't go back there next year. And that's how we started to homeschool. So yes, those things are elevated, once you start to grow your family.
And so here's where I was going with that, and the next level to that question is because I've seen people in long marriages, maybe 20, 25 years in, where the man no longer, and it's not all the time, but it's kind of commonplace. I've seen men that never call their wives by their first names. They call them mama. And again, it's about what she's doing for his kids or has done for his kids. And so what I'm saying, there's an erosion in the culture, because like when I was growing up, a mother was such a respected figure that literally it was fight. Crack a joke on my mama? Are you kidding me? We're fighting. And that's, again, when I look at Tom Brady, it's like, no, go ahead and crack jokes on my mama or the mama of my kids. And then when I look at, and again, I'm 57. It used to be like, man, you did not take Jesus' name in vain. That was a serious offense. And now people just casually say, damn and all these other things. And it's just very casually said, and it's no big deal. And again, I fight it in myself because I get the emails from time to time. It's not that I say God damn, but I'm saying something to say, hey, Jason, you took Jesus' name in vain. Cut it out. Don't do it. Be conscious of it. Right. But again, it's an erosion in the culture where we've devalued motherhood, we've devalued fatherhood, and we've devalued Jesus to a point that we all, even me, I sat there and watched the Tom Brady joke and I laughed at all the jokes and it never crossed my mind until days later. I'm like, man, they just took a massive dump on Tom Brady's, the mother of his kids. And so I just look at a culture that just doesn't respect motherhood the way that we used to. And so I'm looking at Brady, I'm gonna defend this billionaire business owner that made me rich. And that's an indication of like the boss, the person that advanced my career, they have they're higher in the pecking order than the mother of his kids. And I think we're so controlled by money that many of us, we all, unbeknownst to ourselves, we all think that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the conversation I was having, with my sister and my brother-in-law. My sister said, well, it's not just women who are like this. And I acknowledged, yes, a lot of men have been infected by careerism and consumerism. And I think you're 100% right. But the thing is, men generally are willing to acknowledge that if I go all out in my career, I'm going to have to pay the cost somewhere else. So you hear this a lot with retiring athletes and coaches. Well, I wasn't there for certain things during my children's upbringing because I was always at the office. I was always working. And I think there's a new generation of men who obviously feel a deep responsibility to provide for their families. But if they have to choose between 70-hour work weeks and making $500,000 a year and a 45 or 50-hour work week and making $200,000 a year, there's a lot of guys who are going to say, you know what, I have enough money. I'd rather be able to spend time, with my wife and my kids. And I respect that. And I think that means the more that occurs, the more that's an indicator that our values, our cultural values are changing. And we may end up reverting, and this is not a bad thing, back more so into a family culture where job and employment and provision is fit somewhere into that equation, as opposed to a corporate and careerist culture where people say, well, whenever it's right, I'll fit family in wherever I can get it. And the thing is, sometimes, and this is more so to women just because, biology is not working in their favor in terms of their biological clock, some women will pass up a good guy in their mid-20s thinking that train will come again, in their early 30s. And for some of them, it never comes. And the reason some women will dismiss and diminish their desire for marriage and family is because they don't have any prospects. So instead of continuing to say, yes, I want this, and every morning waking up, in a cold bed with your degrees and only being able to say, well, I want it, but it's not happening, it's a lot easier to say, no, I don't want it. It's not important to me. But Jason, in my 40 plus years on this earth, the number of people who I've met who are genuinely content, without romantic relationships or children is extremely small, extremely. So the notion that, oh no, that's not a big deal, everybody doesn't want that. Yeah, that's what you say. But the minute a nice guy comes, he say, hey baby, I want to wife you up. Oh yes, oh, I've been waiting my whole life. And I applaud that and I love that. The problem is when you wait too long and you build up a bunch of bad habits and you rack up a bunch of bodies, whether you're a man or a woman, and a bunch of close calls of one type or another, and the audience can fill in the details, sometimes it makes your relationship that much more difficult when you try to make two become one.
Guilty as charged, Delano. Guilty as charged. The prosecution rests. I have no, or the defense team rests, and I have no defense for that. Delano, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I'm
Jason.
going to put a button on this conversation before we play tomorrow. Don't play tomorrow. I'm going to put a button on this before, because what Delano just said there is fascinating and on target, and it's why I try to be transparent on this show and try to don't make the mistakes that I made, because it's he's 1,000% right with everything he said. Arrogance and foolishness and just being stupid. And it's like when I hear this Benedictine student, I hope she has to listen to this 10 years from now. I'm 21 and my mind ain't even thinking about marriage or kids. And I grew up in a generation where, you know, and particularly I went to a school, Ball State. And I love Ball State, it's great. But a lot of the women went to Ball State to pursue an MRS degree. They were just out there scouting husbands. That's why they went to college. It was fun, but they were scouting husbands. Now women go to college to get some bogus degree so they can sit in a cubicle and then sit around and try to be a boss of a man. They're miserable. They're taking antidepressants. They're on Twitter and IG posting videos trying to convince themselves that, I made all the right choices. And you remember the woman that put out the video, I can sleep in until 12 o'clock because I don't have kids. And then me and my friends, we can go dancing in a club because I don't have kids and I'm not, all that BS. And again, I don't live in that space of denial. That's why I can sit here and tell like, man, I messed up. God sent me some women and I was arrogant and stupid and thought a lot of dumb things. Don't make that mistake. Don't. And anyway, that's why men of shared values and beliefs need to gather up, pass on wisdom to each other, encourage each other, and get real with each other so that they don't make the kind of stupid mistakes that I made. So anyway, thank you, Delano. Thank you guys for tuning in. I got one more day of this rampage I'm on of just trying to make sure everybody understands what we're doing here. And I'm glad just having this discussion with Delano and all day and just thinking about Harrison Butker. I told you I started the show off frustrated about some things that are going on behind the scenes, but I actually feel better now. Just having had this discussion and engaging with Delano and you guys in the audience. Keep the emails coming and the feedback coming, fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Don't forget to visit fearlessarmyrollcall.com, fearlessarmyrollcall.com. Sign up for Roll Call 2.0. We'll see you tomorrow.
Looking like it's my time, feeling all kinds of free. These words are our religion, all regrets and our decisions. We all wanna go to heaven.